conversations between Mr. Rivera from September the 6th of 2018. I'm at a loss to see, as I have quickly reviewed all 20 some odd pages of this, what other information there is in here that might be relevant to the issue at hand.
Yes, ma'am. May I tell you what I think would be relevant about it?
Yes.
Okay. Number one, Your Honor, it establishes when Ms. Guyger has sent texts indicating when she's going to different locations. For example, her texts indicate that she's partnering up with Martin Rivera that morning. It indicates when she's going to the scene with the SWAT operation. It also is clearly in response to Mr. Rogers' opening statement about how they always have to be on guard. It's the intensity of it. They always have to be on guard. State's Exhibit number 3 shows you that particular day for the hours in which she's working. She is checking emails. She is going on WFAA.com, looking at Dallas Police Department officers who have internal affairs problems. She's going to Pinterest. She's going to Facebook. She's reading Dallas Police Department emails. Again, so much of this is going to be cast, it's going to become relevant in response to what they are saying. So they've put in front of this jury that she's always got to be on guard. And State's Exhibit number 3 indicates a day full of basically spending her time on the phone perusing the internet, going to various different websites, certainly not being on guard, if she's in the middle of reading an article on Pinterest. So I think that it goes towards that. But most importantly, it shows the interaction with her and her officers at the various different assignments that we both talked about she was doing that day.
All right, your objection to State's Exhibit 3 is overruled.
Now, Your
What
Honor,
else do we need to find out before I give the court reporter a short break?
nothing, but Your Honor, if I will take State's Exhibit 3 to Mr. Rogers, and in the event that Mr. Rogers wants certain portions of that for officer safety or anything like that redacted, I will certainly be amenable for any issues like that, and I will reoffer as redacted.
I don't know whether or not you wish that or not, Mr. Rogers. In as much as your opening argument did tend to indicate to the jury that this was an extremely intense and stressful day, I think State's Exhibit 3 becomes relevant to demonstrate that during the course of these 14 or so hours that Ms. Guyger was working, there was a substantial amount of down and or leisure time that she spent, which is contrary to the argument that you put forth. If you all wish to redact those portions of State's Exhibit 3 that relate to officer safety, I certainly would encourage that. But that'll be at your agreement, not my order. Okay, now we're going to give the court reporter a break, and we'll start back. Can you recover in 15 minutes? You don't want to break? That was enough of a break. Okay, let's bring the jury back then. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you all need that? No. Okay, so I can put on today.
That's Mr. Watson.
Oh, fantastic. Well, when Mr. Watson is done, then we will be done. And we will resume tomorrow at 8:30. So I'd like to see your lovely faces no later than 8:15.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. We're ready.
All right.
You may resume.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sergeant Watson, I believe when we left off, we were talking about State's Exhibit number 315, which is titled Professional Conduct and Personal Bearing. And so just to confirm, you stated in this general order of the Dallas Police Department, 4.1.H, that officers are always considered on duty. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's what it says.
And then going back to State's Exhibit number 312, which is Standard Operating Procedure 1509, burglary in progress. burglar alarm open building that we spoke about earlier. In this SOP, would you agree with me, Sergeant, that it lists at least 4 separate occasions where it states that officers are to pair off with a partner,
Yes, ma'am.
that they are to utilize their lights,
Yes, ma'am.
that they are to use cover and or concealment depending on the situation,
Yes, ma'am.
that they are to consider a tactical retreat depending on the situation.
Yes, ma'am.
And again, all of these things are for officer safety, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that if there is a situation to where it looks like entry has been made, you can either treat it as a barricaded person, which means you're going to call for SWAT,
Yes, ma'am.
and then it becomes a situation of containment and maintaining a perimeter until the additional officers arrive. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And Sergeant Watson, do you know if the defendant had a take-home radio?
Every officer is assigned a radio.
Every officer is assigned one?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it common practice are those radios always charged,
Generally, yes.
generally? And at headquarters, I know that officers, there's a place for them to charge their body cams, is that correct?
That I couldn't answer.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
But are there charges for the radios at the headquarters?
When you're assigned a radio, you're given your own personal charger. So if you're looking for a charger at headquarters, it would have to be somebody else's personal charger.
Okay, but are a lot of charges at headquarters though?
I honestly don't know, ma'am. I don't work down there, so
Okay. So that's like main headquarters?
That's
So
main
at your
headquarters.
station,
I have a charger on my desk.
Okay, and so at your station, do you have chargers?
Yes, ma'am.
Pass the witness.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
Sergeant Watson, you spoke about Amber Guyger was selected for the CRT that she had been interviewed, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were part of that interview process?
Yes, sir.
And the criteria that you spoke about, she met your criteria?
Yes, sir.
And the rest of the panel? Correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, the CRT team, what are the normal work hours for the CRT?
At that time, it was 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Back in September of last year?
Yes.
Was it common for members of the CRT to work overtime?
Yes, sir.
Was it predictable?
It's never predictable.
And is that unpredictable because of the nature of the job, chasing dangerous criminals?
Yes, sir.
Now, you spoke a little bit about the SWAT team on September the 6th using CRT, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And is it your understanding that the SWAT team was involved in an arrest of some robbery suspects? Correct?
Yes, sir.
And is it also your understanding at some point after the arrest, the SWAT team was done and the suspects were in custody, correct?
Yes, sir.
The SWAT team, is it your understanding the SWAT team was done for the day, but the CRT team had to keep the suspects in custody at headquarters?
Yes, sir.
And then SWAT team's done, who takes over at that point?
CRT handles it.
Is somebody at headquarters also working the case?
The investigators, yes.
So SWAT goes, now investigators are working it, but the CRT is constant throughout the ordeal, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, you were asked some questions about some of the various policies of the department. For instance, you were asked about 1509 regarding burglary in progress.
Yes, sir.
All that. And you stated that these are best practices of the department, correct?
Yes, sir.
Are those best practices for officers responding to dispatched calls?
Yes, sir.
That's what they're written for, correct?
It's my understanding that's what they're written for.
So when you talk about the use of the lights, the use of a partner, You're speaking specifically about officers who are responding to dispatched calls, correct?
Yes, sir.
And are you pretty familiar with 1509?
Fairly, yes, sir.
Okay. Are you familiar with the part of 1509 at the beginning of the policy that says always be prepared for a possible ambush?
Yes, sir.
And this is about ambush when officers respond to a burglary call, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is that because officers are prepared or trained to expect a dangerous situation if there's a burglary in progress?
Yes, sir.
Now, there's other contingencies, barricaded person, use of canine. Those are all part of the best practices for officers responding to dispatch calls. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, getting back to the burglary in progress call that states about being prepared for possible ambush. To you, does that mean if an officer is responding to a burglary in progress call and the officer is attacked?
Yes, sir.
And there's the other contingencies in the police department's general orders and standard operating procedures. They don't negate an officer's right to self-defense, do they?
Not that I'm aware of.
And you're familiar with the way that officers are trained and CRT officers are trained, correct?
Yes, sir.
And they're trained, as part of their training with the Dallas Police Department, they're trained in self-defense, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Including through the use of a firearm, correct?
Yes, sir.
Pass the witness.
Briefly, Your Honor. Sergeant Watson, where are officers trained to shoot an individual?
At the Firearms Training Center?
And where on an individual's person
Oh, I'm
are they
sorry.
trained to shoot them?
In their torso, I'm sorry.
In their torso?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that also considered center mass?
Yes, ma'am.
No further questions, Your Honor. Pass the witness.
Did you have Reed?
No,
Did you
ma'am.
have further cross?
Pass the witness.
May he be excused? Would you like me subject to recall?
Subject to recall, I know he has some trip issues, I don't want to interfere with that, but just to have us the opportunity to recall him just in case and subject to the rule.
All right, so Sergeant Watson, you certainly understand that there may be a need to recall you to the witness stand. And so please don't discuss your testimony with any other persons, and don't do so with anyone except the attorneys, and make certain you're outside the presence of any other witnesses.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Did you have another witness for today available?
I've got plenty, Judge.
All right, well, bring one on here.
State calls Martin Rivera.
We gotta take advantage of all the time we have. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Please make yourself comfortable.
Thank you.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, please.
Officer Rivera, would you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Martin Rivera. I'm a police officer with the Dallas Police Department, and I currently work out of the Southeast Patrol Division.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you either hold that microphone a little bit towards you. We've got jurors all the way down here. I want to make sure they hear you, and you may want to speak up just a little bit, okay?
Okay.
All right, how long have you been with the Dallas Police Department?
16 years.
All right, and are you currently assigned within the crime response team?
That's what it's called. No, I'm not.
Okay, where are you now?
I work Southeast Patrol on the day shift.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about the crime response team. For the time period that you were on it, tell me a little bit about the
When I was on it, some of our responsibilities were locating and apprehending wanted fugitives, investigating street-level narcotics complaints, following certain crime trends. For example, if there was a rash of robberies in a certain area, then we would target that area and take enforcement. There's times when if it was called, we'd work in a covert capacity and surveil target houses, wanted fugitives.
How long were you on CRT?
About 5 years.
And is overtime regular and common on CRT?
Yes.
Tell me about Amber Guyger. First of all, do you see her in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Please point to her and tell me what she's wearing.
Blue dress.
Let the record reflect the witnesses identify the defendant in open court. When did she join CRT?
I believe it was early 2017.
And when did you become partners with her?
Maybe around spring 2017, maybe the summer of that same year.
And did you guys end up becoming fairly regular two-man unit partners while you were on duty?
A lot of the times we were, yes.
Okay. And you have a great deal of respect for her, is that correct?
Yes.
And I believe that she also likes you very much. You guys develop a close relationship as partners, is that fair to say?
Yes.
All right. And let's talk now specifically about September the 6th, 2018. Did you work with her that particular day?
Yes.
Okay, and your regular hours are 8 to 4?
Yes.
So you guys were made aware that there was going to very likely be an overtime situation because of assistance with SWAT?
Yes.
All right. Were you able to, I guess, agree with, or did you have a problem with working the overtime hours on that particular day?
There was a conflict on my end, so I wasn't able to work I worked overtime, just not the full overtime shift that the other guys worked.
Okay, so you left before 6 p.m., is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Was this going to be a personal event that you wanted to attend?
Yes.
What about Amber Guyger? I'd like you to tell me a little bit about her on that particular day. Did Amber Guyger seem to have her faculties about her?
Yes.
All right. Did she seem to be alert and aware of what was going on around her that day?
To my knowledge, yes.
All right. Well, I'm asking you, did she show any obvious deficiencies?
None that I saw, no.
Okay. Did she seem to have the ability to see with her eyes?
Yes.
Was she able to read like license plates? Did you see any kind of vision issues that caused you any concern?
I didn't see any.
All right. Did she complain of being ill?
No.
Did she complain of having any kind of undue stress in her life?
No.
Did she complain of being tired when she got on duty?
No.
All right. Did she look like she did normally?
Yes.
All right. So let me just ask it like this. Was there anything obvious about her, either her appearance or her affect, that caused you some concern that she wasn't on her game on that day like she always is?
There was nothing that caused me any concern. No.
Did she seem to be handling her business in an appropriate way that day?
Yes.
Did she seem to be remarkably absent-minded for any reason?
No.
Okay. Did she complain to you about any kind of physical ailments that she was going through?
No.
Did she complain to you about any kind of fatigue,
No.
memory loss,
No.
any undue stress in her life that was interfering with her on this particular day?
No.
Okay. So in the morning, you guys were doing kind of business as usual in CRT.
Yes.
Was she acting appropriately for whatever calls you were taking or any actions that you were doing?
Yes.
All right. I think that, as I understand the timeline, about noon or so, you guys went to the central substation to get briefed. Is that right?
Yes.
And who was giving the briefing?
The Dallas Police SWAT unit.
The SWAT officers?
Yes.
CRT, can you tell the jury why CRT was asked by SWAT to assist with that?
Well, a lot of times when it covers our division, the Southeast Division, they'll call us. And for that, for that specific warrant, it had been a group of suspects who had committed 20 some odd aggravated robberies. And we had apprehended two of them 2 days prior to that in North Dallas. And so we were kind of familiar with some of the suspects that they were going after. So that's another reason why they asked us to assist.
And you guys had an interest in catching those folks, just like SWAT did, didn't you?
Yes.
All right. So this briefing that happened at the Central Station, were you made aware that SWAT was going to be going into a residence, and hopefully they were going to find those actors there?
Yes.
Okay. CRT, what was CRT's role as far as this operation is concerned?
For that operation, our responsibility was just to remain on the perimeter, make sure no one entered the perimeter, and to make sure if any suspects ran from the location, obviously that would be our responsibility as well.
Okay. Did anything like that happen?
No.
SWAT rather quickly, and this is a testament to them. They were able to go in, execute their performance, and apprehend these people safely without loss of life to either the police or to the citizens. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Thank God. And then they bring these people out, and what is the standard operating procedure then when you've arrested an individual who is suspected of committing a crime? What do you do with them?
Well, the first thing we want to, get them into custody, properly identify them, positively identify who they are, who we're dealing with. But on those situations, we usually sit them in the back of a police car, identify them, fill out whatever bookend sheet that we need to fill out, and at the detective's request, when it's safe to do so, we'll transport them down to headquarters.
Okay. Do you put someone who has been suspected of being involved in a criminal offense, are they put in handcuffs?
Yes.
All right. Certainly indicating that they are under arrest, right?
Yes.
And when you're under arrest, are you free to leave?
No.
When you're under arrest, are you free to walk around and converse with friends and neighbors?
No.
When you're under arrest, are you allowed to take out your cell phone and start calling people?
No.
Do you, when you make an arrest of somebody, tell them not to say anything?
No, I don't.
Okay. When you arrest somebody, do you say, hey, can I call your attorney for you?
No.
When you arrest somebody, do you want to put, say like you arrest multiple people, do you put them in different vehicles so they can't get their story straight?
We separate them, yes.
Because what you want to do is you want to get them out of an element where they can be impressed or maybe fabricate, right?
Yeah, we try to get them to not come up with the same story. And if we put them in a car together, they might be talking amongst each other and try to say, well, tell them this and I'll tell them this. So try to prevent that.
Right. Because even amongst bad guys, they have people that like them, don't they?
Yes.
And amongst the people that like them, they would like them to get away with crimes. Do you agree?
I agree.
And they may be able to tell them how maybe they can help themselves. Is that right?
Yes.
So you want to sequester, you want to remove those people from possible outside influence. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And Officer Rivera, after you've got the person in handcuffs in a police car, separated from other individuals, do you want to get them down to a detective so that they can be interviewed?
Yes.
And do you want to do that quickly, or do you want to let a lot of time pass before you do that?
I usually act when they tell me to. Like I said before, at the detective's request, we'll take them down.
Sure, I understand that. But let me just ask you this. You've arrested a lot of bad guys over the years, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever arrest a bad guy and say, listen, it's getting close to 5. I'm going to take you out of handcuffs. You just show up at headquarters tomorrow, and if you want to talk, we'll talk to you. Have you ever done anything like that?
No.
Okay. you want to get them down and have them interrogated by a detective as quickly as possible, right?
I don't know about quickly as possible, but sure, if it calls for an interview or an interrogation, then yeah, we'd like to get them interviewed.
Okay. And that's in fact what you guys did this day. You transported those individuals that were arrested down to Dallas Police Department headquarters, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get back down to DPD about 2:15, 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon with the prisoners?
That's probably accurate.
Okay. So I'd like you to let the ladies and gentlemen of the jury know what happens when you're at DPD and you guys are having to sit on, and, I apologize, I'm not a Dallas Police Department officer, so if I use language that's not appropriate, I've heard it say sitting on them, is that right?
Yeah, we use that term.
Okay, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that means.
Sitting on them, obviously, you're not physically sitting on anyone. You're sitting outside of a door, watching that door wherever the suspect is detained in a room. So basically just watching, making sure no one goes in or out other than the detective.
But they're also for an important reason too. I mean, if they start acting a fool, you're the person who has to take care of it, right?
Yes.
Do you remember anything like that happening on the 6th, though?
I don't, no.
Tell me how that works as far as there was 5 of you guys and there were 3 prisoners. What is it that the 5 of you are going to do while the detectives are doing their interview?
Positively ID them, number one. And by that, you're looking up, for us, it's called an AIS system, verifying their identity. It shows pictures, addresses, social security, personal information, just for a way for us to positively say that this is who he's saying he is. Any book-in sheets that need to be done. If the transporting officer is going to do the arrest report, that would be a good time for you to prepare the arrest report. And then other than that, just sitting there, waiting for the detective to do his thing.
If you've got 3 particular persons in the interview room and you've got 5 officers, can you guys rotate? Let officers go to the bathroom, go to the break room,
Yes.
All right. So it can be, would you agree with me or not, it could be a lot of idle time.
Yes.
The accommodations at DPD headquarters, is it a climate control building?
Yes.
Okay. They have break rooms with food and water.
There's a break room. Yes.
I think there's a big TV in the break room too, isn't there?
Yes.
Do the detectives, there's a bunch of detectives that work there, aren't there?
Yes.
And tell me, do you know whether or not a lot of the detectives keep their radio chargers at their desk?
I've seen some, yes.
Let me just ask you this. If you had a concern about your radio starting to get low on power, is there going to be an ability for you to charge your radio somewhere at the Dallas Police Department headquarters?
Yes.
Okay. Now this, as I understand it, you guys were at DPD, well you weren't, you left, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the 4 other members of the CR team, they remained after that?
Yes.
You and Amber Guyger, you share you guys both are very physically fit people, is that right?
I try to be, yes.
Okay. And Ms. Guyger, she also tries to remain physically healthy and very physically fit.
Yes.
All right. Would you consider her to be, at the time of this particular incident, a very healthy, very fit officer?
Yes.
What did you, so after you left, approximately what time did you get home that particular evening?
It could have been just before 6, maybe a little after. I don't remember the exact time, but I would say between 5:30 and 6:30, maybe.
Okay. And what is your phone number?
972-834-5298.
And at the time, did you have Amber Guyger's phone number?
Yes.
Did you guys talk with each other regularly?
Yes.
Did you text each other regularly?
Yes.
Did you and Amber Guyger send Snapchat images to each other?
Yes.
Did you guys send other images through MMS or text messages?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell the jury specifically on or about 9, well, let's just use 9/6 specifically. Would you send provocative photographs of yourself to Amber Guyger?
Yes.
Would Amber Guyger send provocative photos of herself to you?
Yes.
Were there times where you asked her to send particular photos for you and she would do that?
Yes.
Okay, so this kind of relationship was familiar enough where you guys would send photographs of one another to each other?
Yes.
All right. You and Amber Guyger at some point crossed from just being professional partners, police partners, into an intimate relationship. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell me when that happened approximately?
Sometime in 2017. I don't remember the specific date, no.
Okay, and how long did that relationship last? The intimate aspect of it.
Yeah, maybe the end of 2017. I don't remember for sure.
Okay, you sure that didn't progress well into 2018?
Again, I don't remember. It could have.
Okay. What is... Can I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Officer Guyger, I'm sorry, Officer Rivera, I'm showing you Officer Guyger's telephone records. If you'd look at this particular line item, number 1818, dated February of 2018, I want you to read this to yourself, okay?
Okay. Okay.
Okay, this is a message from you, correct?
Yes.
And this is a message to Amber Guyger.
Yes.
And again, I don't want you to answer this out loud, but do you understand the context of what you're asking her?
Yes.
Okay. And this was in February of 2018.
Yes.
You were still having a sexual relationship with her well into 2018, isn't that right?
Yes.
So if Mr. Rogers had said in his opening statement that your relationship ended well before 2017 ended, that's not accurate.
According to that message, no, it's not accurate.
I mean, that was a message from you, isn't it?
Yes, and I don't remember that message, but you just showed it to me, so I'm aware of it now.
Do you remember sending that message?
No, I don't remember sending that message.
Do you remember why you sent that message?
I have a good idea of why I would send something like that, yes.
And that message, again, I'm not going to put it into evidence at this point, but that message would clearly indicate you were having a sexual relationship in February of 2018.
Yes.
All right, I want to take you now to September the 6th. At about 5:55 p.m., did you and Ms. Guyger start exchanging text messages concerning, well, talking about getting together, that particular evening?
Yes.
All right. Your Honor, at this time, I request permission from the court to publish State's Exhibit number 307.
You may publish it. Officer Rivera.
Yes, ma'am.
That screen should show you the same thing that he's putting above your head.
Thank you.
All right, Officer Rivera, I'm not going to go through all of these. I just want to kind of establish what it might indicate a meeting for later on this particular evening, but just as a preliminary matter, this is the phone number that you told me earlier is your phone number, correct?
Yes.
And Officer Rivera, that is your name, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. This is a sorting of records just dealing with your communications to and from Ms. Guyger.
Okay.
Okay? I want to, if I could, just go down. We're going to go later into the day, okay? 2:54 p.m. At 2:54 p.m., do you recall that being where you guys were at the Dallas Police Department?
Yes.
Okay. So you were sending her images, attachments. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's going to be an instant message to an application called Snapchat, is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell me if you can remember what those images were?
No.
Okay, do you remember if they were provocative images?
I don't remember,
All
no.
right. And then at 5:55 p.m., do you send a text message to Ms. Rivera, or to Ms. Guyger, when can I come over?
Yes.
Does Ms. Guyger reply, you can come over after this? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right, does the mm-hmm relate to the Snapchat images? Is that the context in which you understood that to be?
Yes.
Okay. At 5:56 p.m., does Ms. Guyger send you a message asking you if you ended up taking off mañana tomorrow?
Yes.
And then at 5:57 p.m., do you indicate, sorry, that last text wasn't for you?
Yes.
And then she writes, up yours.
Yes.
And you return, you reply to that JK. What does JK stand for?
Just kidding.
Right. Because clearly that message was meant for her, correct?
Yes.
Does Ms. Guyger indicate to you, super horny today too?
Yes.
This is at 6:01 p.m. Is that right?
Yes.
6:01 p.m. you reply, me too.
Yes.
At 6:03 p.m. Ms. Guyger indicates to you, did like that pic though, that didn't help, got me all wet. Yes?
Yes.
And you reply, like it?
Yes.
She replies, yeah, I want it to look longer. Is that correct?
Yes.
The Snapchat program that you guys utilize, that automatically deletes messages, doesn't it? Deletes the photographs after a certain period of time.
Yes.
Okay. Is that why you guys used it?
That's not why I use it, no.
And at 6:04 p.m., another MMS message, sending of an image. Do you have a recollection of what image you sent to Ms. Guyger at 6:04 p.m.?
No.
Ms. Guyger replies, damn. Is that right?
Yes.
Ms. Guyger then sends another message to you at 6:12 p.m. indicating you're cut nice below the armpits, like that. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's a lull in conversation from about 6:12 until about 7:59 p.m. At 7:59 p.m., do you check in on Ms. Guyger and ask her how's it going?
Yes.
All right. Is there a particular reason why you were wanting to check in with her, just to get an update on how things are going?
To get an update, yes.
Okay. Is that because you guys had plans later on that evening and you wanted to see where she was at?
No, it was to see if any of the suspects confessed to any of the robberies.
Sure, but you could have called her.
Yes.
You could have texted her.
Yes.
You could have texted Detective Hellenberg.
Correct.
You could have texted Officer Bruce.
Correct.
Corporal Bacon.
That's correct.
Did you check in with all of them about how it was going?
No.
Okay. At 8:04 p.m., does Ms. Guyger indicate to you, good, we just got to jail? Mac has typed in the warrants report, Bruce had to leave for another job. You know who, that's Officer McPherson she's referring to, right?
Yes.
And that's going to be Officer Bruce, that he had to leave for another job, right?
Yes.
So by 8 o'clock, is it pretty clear from her message to you that they have now arrived at the jail and are turning over custody of the prisoners to the Dallas County Sheriff?
Yes.
Okay. And then at 8:05, you indicate that you just finished that meeting, is that right?
Yes.
And she says, how did that go?
Yes.
And so now you guys are going to talk over the 8:09 to 8:14. Look, you went to a scouts meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay. So are you now talking kind of about how that particular meeting went?
Yes.
All right, so I want to kind of relate that back earlier. When you asked her how it's going, if you really meant by how it's going is how was the case transpiring, you could have just sent her messages asking her that like you did here, right?
Are you asking me if would I have sent her a specific question about what's going on, or?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to ask her, instead of just asking how's it going, because you want to impress upon her that you want to know what's going on with the case, you could have just said, hey, what's going on with the 3 guys we arrested, right? Did they give confessions?
That's another way to ask, yes.
Okay. And that's how you guys are communicating about other things like the Scouts meeting, correct?
I'm sorry, what was that question?
She's asking you and you're asking her, and you guys are discussing a very specific conversation piece about this Scouts meeting, right?
Yeah, it's not very specific, but yeah, we're discussing the Scout meeting at 8:09 p.m.
Okay. And then at 8:14 p.m., Ms. Guyger sends you a message indicating she's getting sleepy here, glad that she took off mañana. Is that right?
Yes.
And then there's no conversation between you until 9:14, when again, this is going to be an instant message where, again, it looks like a couple of attachments or photographs are sent. Do you recall what it was that you sent to her at that time?
No.
This was Snapchat? All right, this was a Snapchat app. Do you recall what the images were that you sent to her?
No.
Okay. And then at 9:27 p.m., you ask her still there?
Yes.
Okay. If you've already asked her earlier about how things are going because you're interested, why are you now asking her if she's still there?
See if she's still at work.
Okay, again, this doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you guys had planned earlier to get together.
Correct.
Okay. And then at 9:29 p.m., she sends you a Snapchat that also includes a text portion of it that says "want to touch." Is that accurate?
Yes.
At 9:33, she indicates to you that she's barely walking out. That's when she's leaving the police station. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then it looks to me again like you sent another MMS text message, an image to her at 9:33 p.m. Do you recall what that image was that you sent to her?
No.
And again, is it going to be, do you have a belief that it was probably yet another provocative photograph?
I'm not sure.
Okay. And then at 9:38, you call her and you begin what is a 16-minute and 44-second conversation with her. Is that accurate, Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Okay. Do you guys often have really 60 minutes and 44 seconds? Is that like the typical length of a telephone conversation that you have with Ms. Guyger?
Usually to and from the gym, yes.
Okay. So we pulled all the telephone records, the telephone calls, and would you be surprised to know that there's only a couple of phone calls that were ever substantially long of all the phone calls that y'all had?
Yes, I would be surprised.
Okay. Normally your calls with Ms. Guyger were fairly short, were they not? 1-2 minutes?
Again, she would be the person that I would call to and from the gym. So when I was on my way to the gym or leaving the gym, that's usually who I would call just to pass time.
And what is your recollection of that conversation that lasted from 9:38:37 until 9:55:21?
To the best of my recollection, remember asking about the suspects to see if they ever confessed. And I really don't remember a whole lot else about the conversation.
Okay. Do you recall that she was driving at the time that you were talking to her?
I assume she was.
And where were you? Did you say that you were just coming from the gym?
Yeah, yes. I believe I was leaving a certain restaurant.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I believe I was leaving a certain restaurant when that phone conversation was happening.
Okay, and where were you going? You were going from the restaurant to where?
Home.
Okay. And had you already been to the gym?
Yes.
Okay, and where is your gym?
It's in Forney,
In Forney, Texas. Where do you live?
Mesquite.
So you'd been up for the same amount of time as Amber Guyger?
Yes,
Right. Did you make it home okay?
I did.
Anything unusual happen? I mean, were you so fatigued that you were a danger to people you were dealing with?
No, I was not.
Are you aware of Ms. Guyger pulling off the lane of traffic after she entered her parking garage to engage in this telephone conversation with you?
No.
Was there anything about that telephone conversation that you could remember that was very demanding or required her to stop driving a vehicle so that she could converse with you?
No.
Do you have any explanation as to why she would have pulled off to engage in this telephone conversation with you?
I don't.
Okay. So approximately what time do you recall making it home?
If I'm looking at that, I would say just before 10.
Did you notice those texts coming in from Ms. Guyger at 10:02 or 10:03 p.m.?
Yes.
When Ms. Guyger writes to you at 10:02:25, she says, "I need you, hurry." Does that kind of convey to you that she's already expecting you to be going towards her?
No.
How do you read that then?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, all those messages came in at the same time. So in addition to that and some missed calls that I received, I interpreted it as there was an emergency going on.
I understand that, but she says to you, I need you, hurry. Like, hurry. She doesn't say where to go, since a lot is left unsaid. Like, can you see how that could be read that you already knew where you were supposed to be going?
No.
Okay, and that's not what that means.
No, not at all.
And then at 10:03, she writes to you, "I fucked up." Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you later come to realize that these text messages had been sent to you while she was on the phone with 911?
No, I didn't know that.
When you have been involved in a situation where life-saving measures are required to deal with a citizen, okay? A citizen is dying, and you're the only one there who can help. Are you trained in providing basic emergency care?
Yes.
What is your job if you're the only one there who can render aid? What should you be doing?
Exactly that.
Anything else?
I mean, if you can, try to call for help.
Okay, but say that you're already on the phone, or you've already let your dispatcher know that you need to have medical personnel and so forth coming to the rescue. Should you be giving 100% of your attention to the person who's dying in front of you, if you can?
Yes, you should.
Should you be sending text messages?
No.
Officer Rivera, in this column to the right of the narrative, all of these red yeses indicate that these messages were deleted off of Amber Guyger's phone. Essentially, the entirety of your conversation on September the 6th with her, well, every single thing on this page had been deleted, and well, pretty much, actually everything was deleted except for timestamps. Do you know, if you know, why Ms. Guyger deleted all of these messages that she had sent and received from you?
No.
She had just been involved in a shooting. You're aware of that, correct?
Yes.
Are sometimes phones seized on an arrest of an individual
Yes.
for evidentiary purposes?
Yes.
That's actually fairly common, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's very common, but it does happen, yes.
Do you know whether or not that concern crossed Ms. Guyger's mind?
I don't.
What about your phone? Did you delete these messages? God bless you, Rivera. Do these messages still exist on your phone, Officer Rivera?
They don't.
Can you tell the jury why those messages don't exist on your phone?
Several reasons. That's not something that I would want to be reminded of. Speaking of the night, and I don't keep messages saved unless it's of an importance to me.
Okay. So your partner was involved in a shooting. You know she's going to be investigated. Now you're telling us that you deleted those messages.
I did.
I'll pass it this.
Officer Rivera, how long have you been a Dallas police officer?
16 years.
And how long in Southeast?
The whole time, since 2002.
And what is, kind of just describe the Southeast sector that you cover as a patrol officer or CRT with Southeast? Is there a wide range of people that you deal with?
Yes. So the geographical area is made up of really 3 areas: South Dallas, Pleasant Grove, and an area just east of Pleasant Grove that we call the Deep Grove. I believe Kleberg Riley is what the old name for it was, but those main 3 areas, we have South Dallas, which is just south of 30. We have Pleasant Grove just east of that, and then, like I said, the Deep Grove is just east of Pleasant Grove.
And a cross-section of all walks of life, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Did you meet Amber Guyger when she was a patrol officer?
I met her once she came to our unit.
After she graduated from the academy, or when she came to CRT?
When she came to the CRT unit.
Were you familiar with her as a hard-working officer?
In CRT, yes.
Did you know about her work ethic prior to coming to CRT?
No.
Generally, do you want officers that you recruit from patrol to be hardworking officers?
Yes.
They can relate to a lot of different people. You're dealing with sometimes the most violent of the violent. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did Amber Guyger, did she, when you were working with her at CRT, did she respond appropriately to all walks of life?
Yes.
Did she respect others, show empathy and compassion for the people that y'all dealt with?
Yes.
With regard to CRT, just describe a typical day when you're part of the CRT unit.
Well, each day is different. Like I said, a lot of times it depends on the crime trend. It depends on what we've been given that morning in detail. But we usually just go after wanted fugitives, and in between that, we try to help out the complaint load that the narcotics division has. So we'll help and take some of those the street level narcotics complaints.
And so every day is different, but you're, is it fair to say you're in a more of a proactive position than patrol officers? You're not just waiting for calls, you're seeking out hot spots, sources of crime, sources of problems in that part of town.
Yes.
Once Amber joined the CRT unit, you don't really partner up, but you can establish a pattern of riding with two-mans with each other. Is that correct?
Yes.
And did you regularly ride a two-man with Amber Guyger?
Quite often, yes.
And some days you might ride a one-man?
Yes.
Or some days you might partner up with someone else?
Yes.
At some point, you developed a sexual relationship with Amber Guyger, correct?
Yes.
And was it fair to say it got intense and then kind of dropped off?
Yes.
Now, earlier you told me you didn't know when it ended. You thought it might have ended at the end of 2017.
Yes.
But I guess Mr. Hermes showed you something about something that might have occurred in February 2018, correct?
Yes.
In 2018, were y'all having a regular sexual relationship?
No.
Had you ever been to the Southside Flats to her apartment?
No.
Had you ever met her dog Ranger?
No.
So, leading into September of 2018, were y'all having a regular sexual relationship?
No.
On September 6, 2018, well, there's a number of text messages that y'all, that you and Ms. Guyger exchange that are provocative, sexually explicit. Explain to the jurors about that.
Explain.
Why do y'all do that? If you're not having a relationship that's an ongoing sexual relationship, why are you exchanging all these text messages?
Flirting, teasing, mainly, yeah.
On September 6, 2018, was there any intent to go to her apartment that night?
No.
On September 6, 2018, did y'all have a plan that you were going to go over to her apartment and have sexual relations that night?
No.
The text messages that go back and forth, is that just flirting, that it is what it is? There wasn't any motive or anything beyond just what you're sending to each other?
Yes.
So when she sent you the text messages, I need you hurry and I effed up, were you by your phone when that happened, or was your phone in your house, or do you recall?
I was not by my phone, no.
So explain to the jurors, when did you see those text messages and what did you do?
I walked into my bedroom and looked at my phone and saw that I had a few missed calls, and I saw I had a few text messages there as well.
And when you saw I need you hurry and I effed up, what went through your mind?
That something terrible happened.
Not that she really wanted you to come over fast to have a sexual relationship.
No.
Did you talk to her shortly after that? Once you realized the messages, did you have a phone conversation with her?
It was very brief, but yes.
What was her demeanor?
She sounded like she was in a panic.
Was she crying?
I don't remember crying. I just remember her speech was very rapid, talking very fast.
And was this different than you've seen her in high-stress situations when you've arrested murderers and robbers and child molesters?
Yes.
So you knew from her demeanor and the tone of her voice that something serious had happened?
Yes.
When you had that phone conversation, the 16-minute phone conversation, was there anything about that conversation that sticks out to you?
No.
Did y'all talk regularly about work, about life, about things?
Yes.
and were from around the time the phone conversation occurred, were you taking, had you gotten food to go and you were taking it to your house?
Yes.
And you don't live near the Southside Flats, do you?
No.
When those text messages came in, your phone, you said, was in your bedroom, so you weren't getting ready to go anywhere, were you?
No.
Was your plan to stay home that night?
Yes.
Had you planned to take the next day off?
No.
But from the text messages we see, she sent you a text that said she was sleepy and she was glad she took off tomorrow, correct? Mañana.
Yes.
And your normal work week at CRT is Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, correct?
Yes.
And like it's been discussed, there are many times, sometimes outside of your control, where y'all have to work overtime, correct?
Correct.
A lot of it depends on what the different investigative units need and what is immediately necessary to serve the purposes of the Dallas Police Department and protect the public, correct?
Yes.
On September 6th, the first part of the day, was it just kind of normal? You weren't trying to look for anything, any major, you weren't starting any new major operations in that morning because you had a operation to do that afternoon, correct?
Yes.
But that morning you still went around the area and looked for anything, any criminal activity, anything that would require your intervention, correct?
Yes.
And at about 12:30, there's a briefing at Central, correct?
Yes.
And that's done to plan the operation for that day and to describe everybody's role, correct?
Yes.
And CRT's role was provide perimeter, correct?
Yes.
And when you're in that function, you're watching SWAT's back and you're also watching the public's back, so to speak. You don't want anyone coming inside the perimeter, correct?
Correct.
And you don't want, once SWAT hits that house, there's a lot of variables that occur. You don't want anyone coming from there trying to get away, correct?
Correct.
So you are on high alert, definitely, when you're out there at the scene, correct?
Yes.
And then there is a suspect who you end up transporting to the police station, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Hermes asked you a series of questions about handling suspects. Do you arrest someone that you don't have probable cause that a crime occurred?
No.
That would be unconstitutional, wouldn't it?
Yes.
The people that you arrested and transported to headquarters on September 6, 2018, there was either warrants or it had been conveyed to you there was probable cause to believe that they had committed an aggravated robbery, correct?
Yes.
And so these were suspects who detectives and other officers had conveyed to you, they believed they had probable cause to believe had committed crimes, correct?
Yes.
If an officer said to you, hey, this guy was around, but we don't believe he committed a crime, would you handcuff him?
No.
Would you transport him to headquarters to be interrogated against his will if you don't believe he committed a crime?
No.
When you transport these people down to headquarters, are they forced to submit to an interview, or do they have constitutional rights as well?
No. They can either waive their right or
Invoke their right to remain silent.
yes.
And therefore, they're not interrogated if they choose not to.
Correct.
The Dallas Police Department has Well, let me ask you this. When you're out there on the perimeter, the Southeast Patrol there's different channels that you have on your radio that connect to dispatch in certain areas of the city. Is that correct?
Yes.
For example, Southeast is called Channel 3, correct?
Yes.
And so if you're in the Southeast sector and you want to communicate with other officers or with Southeast Dispatch, you're on Channel 3, correct?
Yes.
Does CRT have their own radio channel when you're conducting operations?
Yes.
And does that channel, when you're communicating on that channel, does that go through dispatch?
No.
That's so you can be in a dedicated channel so that you can communicate about different things that are going on with regard to the operation and not be interrupted by other calls or other interference, correct?
Yes, I should probably back up. I'm not sure if it goes to dispatch or not, but what I can say is it's not monitored by a dispatcher.
Okay. And then SWAT has their own channel, correct?
Yes.
Is that Channel 8?
Yes.
So when you're out on the perimeter out there by our LC Fane Higgins, you could be, your radios could be on a channel that would allow you to communicate with each other in CRT or communicate with SWAT, correct?
Yes.
And do you recall after you left the perimeter if you switched your radio, like when you go to headquarters, do you switch your radio to channel 1 or is that something you even think about?
No, I usually stay on 3.
And so if you're over by headquarters and you needed assistance on your radio, it would go through the Southeast Dispatch, correct?
Yes.
When you are, you're familiar with the rules and procedures of the Dallas Police Department, of course.
Yes.
So there's procedures when you're responding to a burglary or a burglary alarm call, correct?
Yes.
And when you respond to a burglary call, it's safe to say that you're not standing in the place that's being burglarized when you get dispatched to that call, correct?
Correct.
You're somewhere in the city and you get dispatched and you have the luxury of time to come up with a plan of how to handle that call based on training, policy, and procedure, correct?
Correct.
For instance, if you walked into your home and there was an intruder in your home, would you apply the Dallas Police patrol procedures on responding to a burglary call, or would you apply your immediate need to deal with the immediate threat?
The latter, yes.
So there's a tremendous difference between walking into your own home and confronting an intruder versus having the luxury of being dispatched to a burglary call, correct?
Correct.
And so do you believe it's reasonable for a police officer to, when they're in their own home, and that's when the first time that they realize they're a burglary, to deal with the immediate nature of that call then and there?
Judge, I'm going to object to speculation and invades the province of the jury.
Sustained.
You are required to address threats immediately sometimes in your role as a police officer, correct?
Yes.
And you don't always have the luxury of calling for cover, finding concealment, calling SWAT. You have to deal with what's thrust in front of you, correct?
Yes.
I'll pass, please.
Is there a redirect?
Briefly, Your Honor. Okay, proceed.
Yes, please.
With respect to the radio, Officer Rivera, your radios are programmable, correct?
Yes.
And whether you working southeast on channel 3, if you want, you could change it to channel 1 patrol, channel 2 patrol, channel 3 patrol, channel 4 patrol. I mean, these radios can be changed to different patrol channels, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And it's not difficult, right? Is it turning a knob or pushing a button?
Correct.
Okay. And again, Ms. Guyger had a take-home radio, did she not?
Yes.
Just like you.
Yes.
And presumably, unless there was something wrong with that radio, she could have called out for help over that radio, is that correct?
Yes.
And even if she was on channel 3, which is the Southeast Patrol radio station, is that right?
Yes.
If a police officer calls out and says, what is it you guys call an officer assist, a signal 15?
Yes.
Okay. If Officer Guyger or you or any other member of the Dallas Police Department put out an officer assist call, you would think that the Southeast dispatcher would be able to get people on in Central in any other part of the city, isn't that right?
Correct.
I mean, y'all are not so disconnected that if an officer needs backup, it's not going to be that complicated if you put out a distress call over a radio.
If you're on one of the main 7 channels, yes.
Right. And even if you're not, say for example you're on a top channel or some other kind of channel, you can, through the twist of, I'm an old man, okay? I remember when police radios, you would tune it with a little knob. But I've looked at y'all's radios and there's a bunch of buttons. Is it just a matter of turning a knob or pushing a button and you can go to pretty much any channel that you want?
Yes.
And when a signal 15 comes out, when an officer says that they need assistance, that is the most premier, paramount call in police culture, in the police community, isn't it?
Yes.
You're going to stop anything you're doing and you're going to go to assist an officer, are you not?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware in this case that officers responded after the dispatcher received Ms. Guyger's call that she made on her telephone, that there were officers on scene within 2 minutes? Were you aware of that?
No.
Because it was a signal 15, wasn't it?
Yes.
It had been made into a signal 15. Did you tell Mr. Rogers, did you agree with Mr. Rogers that Ms. Guyger had the utmost empathy, compassion, and respect for people of all backgrounds?
Yes.
Is that what was that the message you were conveying to the jury?
I mean, I would object. My question was the people that she dealt with at Southeast that they arrested and the victims that they dealt with. That was my question, Judge.
Your Honor, may we approach the bench?
Yes.
Thank you, Officer Rivera. Your Honor, I have no other questions of the officer at this time, subject to recall.
Does she have recall?
Yeah, Your Honor.
Would you like him to remain subject to recall, or can he be excused?
Subject to recall. Stand by subject to recall.
All right, so Officer Rivera, you understand that we need to be able to get in touch with you because the attorneys may want to call you back for additional questioning. So just make certain that they each have a way of contacting you.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much. You may be excused. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I really thank you for your cooperation and patience today. We're going to break at this time for the day. I'm going to give you the same admonitions, though you should be incapable of viewing, hearing, or watching anything that the media might have to say about this. But even if it's inadvertent, please do not watch it, read it, or listen to it. Do you understand? Yes. All right. We will begin tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. I'd like for the attorneys to be here by 8:15. And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you should be safely transported here so that we could begin at that time.
All right.
So, are we anticipating any motions in the morning? Or are we going right into testimony at 8:30,
I pray we get ready.
which is my hope?
I'm not anticipating anything, Judge. Assuming there's no interviews there.
Yeah, I'm shocked that Mr. Crusoe could not have made an appearance. But could you please admonish your boss that the gag order extends to him as well? He is not above the gag order.
Of course, I'll comply with the court's orders.
I know you will, but I want to know that Judge Crusoe will. You all may be seated and excused. I'll see you in the morning at 8:15.
I won't be here.